Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at Games Workshop's most recent article, Pricing Update. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Well, we discussed it. I gave you my opinion that it was probably coming. It was just a matter of time. And here we have it, the Pricing Update. And if you're not familiar with the word update, that means Games Workshop is raising their prices. We're sure it hasn't escaped your notice that a lot of things are more expensive than they used to be. Food, materials, transport, essentials, and luxuries alike. Stuff costs more to make and more to move, and Warhammer is not immune to these changes. This means that from the 6th of March, we'll be increasing some prices. The average change for plastic kits is about 6%. As an example of what you can expect, a Battle Sister squad goes up £1.50 from £36 to £37.50. We understand that no one likes a price rise. We've done our best to keep prices down on some of our hobby essentials, and we're giving you a heads up now so that you can have plenty of time to take advantage of the current prices. What is changing? Plastic miniatures, Forgeworld and Citadel resin miniatures, standard and artificer Citadel brushes, spray paints. What is not changing? Starter sets, paint pots, Citadel tools, codexes, rulebooks, and battle tomes, synthetic STC brushes. So what are we looking at here? We are pretty much looking at a 6% increase in your local currency or equivalent over current prices on all plastic kits, Forgeworld and resin kits, and then brushes and spray paints. What is Games Workshop's excuse? Things are getting more expensive to make and transport, and they are not immune to these changes. So Games Workshop's excuse for this most recent price increase that is coming down the pipe is stuff costs more to make and more to move, and Warhammer is not immune to these changes. So without being super technical or anything like that, we could just assume that what Games Workshop is saying is, hey, we have pricing power in the market, so we can raise our prices to make up for the pressure that's being put on margins currently. Or essentially, hey, we're a publicly traded company. Our number one priority is to make profits for our shareholders, increase shareholder wealth, return some of that wealth to our shareholders. And unfortunately, our expenses have gone up. So now, in order to maximize that shareholder wealth, what we need to do to protect those margins is raise prices. So that would make sense if that was actually the issue. And I know what's going to come from this. A lot of people are going to chime in and say Warhammer is a luxury good. You shouldn't play it if you can't afford it. Warhammer's not for everyone. There's lots of alternatives. You can 3D print if you can't afford the hobby. And you know what? I don't think any of those are valid excuses. The idea of saying to someone that they're too poor to Warhammer just is mind-blowing for me. Lots of people have seen tons and tons of benefits from the lore and the fantasy of it, from the camaraderie of the actual games themselves. I mean, honestly, painting and modeling is great for mental health as well. Gives you a feeling of accomplishment when you finish things. I love this hobby. I've been in this hobby over 30 years. And honestly, I hate to see what Games Workshop is doing. But you know what? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and let's just double check if this recent price increase is actually to protect margins. Because we would assume if margins are going down, shareholders might be upset. Therefore, Games Workshop has to raise prices just to kind of keep up, just to get by. They're definitely not using inflation as an excuse to be greedy capitalists. And for those of you in the chat, I'm all about capitalism. I'm 100% about capitalism. But there is a difference between capitalism and exploitation. And again, I know you could just not play the game, whatever. But we don't have to worry about that because Games Workshop made it very, very clear that the only reason they're raising prices is because their costs have gone up as well, and they're just trying to maintain their margins. So let's just double check that because we can look because Games Workshop is a publicly traded company. So let's go have a look at their financials real quick. All right, so here we have Games Workshop Group, ticker symbol GAW on the London Stock Exchange. And here we're looking at their financials. They recently reported their semi-annual numbers for half one of 2022. And in those numbers, we see their profit margin is 29.35%. So what if we just switch to annual and we just see like historically, what is Games Workshop's profit margin? Has it been holding up or is it just strictly declining? So here we see 31% for 2021, very high, 33% for 2020, 26% for 2019, 25.65% for 2018, 26.87% for 2017. So we can see here in the last 5 years that we have full year of reporting that on average, Games Workshop's profit margin was around 26% for the first 3 years. And then we saw a massive jump in 2020. Obviously, we know what that was from. They sold a lot more direct online, cut out the middleman because a lot of shops were closed. So a lot of the volume went through their online store, which has substantially higher profit margin. So we see 33% jump in 2020. And then we see it actually came back down to 31. So it headed back more towards the historical average of Games Workshop's profit margin, even though it was technically a slight decline over 2020. And then again, if we go back to the semi-annual, we see half one of 2022 was 29.36%. So sure, it was less than 33 or 31, but we know those are artificially inflated numbers from the pandemic. And historically speaking, 26% is their profit margin. So they're still raking in about an extra 10% over their historical profit margin. As the inflation is raging, Games Workshop has repriced its items and is making a higher profit margin than it has ever made in all of its history of 35 plus years on planet Earth. So any excuses from Games Workshop that this is to protect their profit margins is a blatant lie. We can see it right here in the numbers. Profit margins at 29%, 10% higher than the historical average, and maybe a percent or two lower than the last 2 years, which are clearly anomalies because a lot of that volume was forced through Games Workshop's online store. As Games Workshop was either not resupplying its retailers, many of the retailers were closed, or they were unable to get product where it needed to be other than selling directly through their web store. And now a quick message from this week's sponsor. This video is sponsored by CMOgames.com, where you can get 15% off most Games Workshop pre-orders, and they go live right at midnight Saturday mornings. CMOgames.com offers free shipping on orders over $25 in the US 48, and most orders ship within 24 hours. CMOgames.com has been selling Games Workshop products online for more than 20 years, and customer service is their top priority. CMOgames.com carries the full line of Games Workshop products, including 40K, Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, warcry, paints, hobbies, and tools. Visit CMOgames.com using the affiliate link in the description below so they know you heard about CMOgames.com from Warhammer Man Studios. Now, back to the video. So I know exactly what's going to happen every time Games Workshop announces one of their price increases and then blames it on inflation or something like that. People will step in and defend them. They will show up and white knight in the comments for Games Workshop and how we have to protect their margins, how it's capitalism, and whatever other excuse on top of that. But you know what? Honestly, in my opinion, if Games Workshop wants to come out and blame it on rising costs, then let's see your margins decline, if that's really the problem. Because otherwise, you're just basically using inflation to essentially scapegoat and then just raising prices because you're a greedy scum. That's my opinion, at least. And you know what? I have the numbers to back it up. So maybe we'll see when they report half two of 2022. But we still have a few months until that happens. Maybe then we'll see decline profit margins of like 26% back towards historical levels. And now Games Workshop is getting defensive and trying to protect those. But honestly, we won't know until about the middle of the year. But in the meantime, I'll just assume that Games Workshop is lying. And I'm going to assume that based on actual numbers, statistics provided directly from them as a publicly traded company. So I'm going to use facts and data, and then we can just believe whatever we want to believe or fantasize about how Games Workshop is just protecting their profit margins. But the truth is, they're just a scumbag, greedy company. And honestly, it's ridiculous. So you can decide for yourself based on this simple little look right here into Games Workshop's financials. Are they raising prices to protect their already elevated profit margins? Or are they raising prices just to keep up so that they can get by? Because I think it's pretty clear that this is 100% greed. The only reason they're even able to use profit margins as something defensive, saying they're trying to protect their profits, is because they saw that ridiculous spike during Rona. And it's very clear through some of Games Workshop's recent changes that what they're attempting to do is direct even more of their sales to the online store and cut out the middleman. And of course, on the online store, they sell everything at full price. So not only do they cut out the middleman, but they actually get to capitalize on massively higher margins because they get to capture the entire profit that the middleman would be making, as well as the profit that they would normally make to sell to that retail store. So regardless of how you take this change or what you think of this, maybe it's a massive deal and you're done with Games Workshop. Maybe it's not a big deal at all and you'll just pay a little bit more. Please, under no circumstances, ever purchase anything directly from Games Workshop's web store, because this only further helps them to cut out the friendly local game stores. And if you want a place to go hang out and a place to go pick up miniatures locally, if you want somewhere to meet new people with similar interests or to just game and have fun, we need to protect these friendly local game stores. So please go out of your way to purchase from your local store and show your support, or an online store such as CMO. But whatever you do, don't purchase straight from Games Workshop, because in the end, that's how they really win. Because that is the worst case scenario for the community, and that reinforces Games Workshop that they're doing a good job when they see those sales rise. So that's it for today. I'm obviously very heated. Try to keep it cool. Don't want this to turn into an epic rant, but very disappointed at what's to come here. It's unfortunate that Games Workshop is constantly fueled by greed. It's one thing to take advantage of capitalism, and by all means, I'm all about it. But to take advantage of a pandemic, to use that as an excuse to rake your customers and fans over the coals and squeeze every ounce of profit out of them you possibly can, even when you're making record high profit levels and your margin rates are extremely high relative to other businesses in the same space. It's very unfortunate and very disappointing that Games Workshop would take advantage of a situation like this, especially when we can pull up the numbers and see clearly that they are blatantly lying. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the video. Make sure to check them out to save 15% and get those orders in before the new price rise comes on the 6th of March. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm very disappointed. And I'm out of here.